Hello and welcome. We're back. It's season 6, first episode back. Super excited.
The crazy train has started again.
It has. I'm Caleb.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Couchy.
And yeah, welcome back to Send It Mate podcast. It's been a bit of a hiatus while we've had Christmas and New Year's. So happy New Year's to you guys.
Yeah, happy New Year's to everyone out there as well.
Yeah, all our listeners at home. I know you've missed us. We're glad to be back. And we've got a special episode for you tonight. We've got a guest straight off the bat. And we're pretty excited. This is a fellow South Australian. And yeah, we're keen. We had her partner on last season. But let's introduce her. Ky Furneaux.
How you going,
Hi.
Ty?
Good. How are you? You got it right. Most people say Furneaux, or at least. So I was holding my breath there for a second.
You've done your research, obviously.
Yeah, they're good old research.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Ky has done a lot of things in life, and she's a survivalist, a stuntwoman, an author, an adventurer, a TV host, among many things. And she describes herself as a survival nerd. So we're pretty keen to get into what that's all about. So yeah, well,
Does that sound sexy?
look, I'm sure there's a reason why you've described yourself that way. So we're keen to unpack that a bit. But let's get into the first question. We did mention you're a fellow South Australian. So where are you actually from, Ky?
Well, I was born in Adelaide in Elizabeth and then quickly moved into the mid-north of South Australia. So most people know Peterborough or Jamestown, and then you sort of go to like this even smaller little town, which is now a complete ghost town called Tarawi. And it probably had like 350 people when I was there, and it's got about 100 people now. So it is the one general store and 2 pubs, I think, have closed down now, and they were the main street. So it was a tiny little town in outback Australia, right on the edge of the outback there.
How far away from Orroroo? Wouldn't be that far.
No, it's not that far from Orroroo at all. So yeah, it's like maybe an hour or hour and a half, I think. I don't know, but it's right there.
That would have been strange
Wow.
growing up out there, to be honest. That would have been harsh as.
I think I loved it. And this is where that nerd thing comes in. You know, like my favourite thing is to be in the outdoors. And, you know, we got to grow up with such freedom. You know, my dad and mum were the principal and deputy of the school, and they taught, like, mum taught reception to grade 3 and dad taught 4 to 7. And there was maybe 20 kids in the school, and we're all mates. So on the weekends, you know, we'd just get on anyone's bikes. You know, we'd be dinking or like being towed, or like everyone would just get together and we'd go off on adventures. So it was such a freedom to that place. You know, I love the red dirt and I love the electrical thunderstorms. And, you know, for me as a kid, being allowed to just roam free, that was probably the best way I could have ever grown up myself. I mean, probably as a teenager, you'd be like, God, there's nothing here. But I'd moved on to like Narracort in the southeast by then and had a horse. And so, you know, I didn't have to spend those teenage years in that sort of town.
That's a huge transition. Desert to Narracort, like the lush, wonderful place of South Australia.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So I do love both places, but the red dirt will always be in my veins, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Quick question. Your latest show that you're doing, that was filmed on your uncle's place out there? Uncle's?
So that show we filmed about 3 years ago. So I've done a few other things since then. So that was Outback Lockdown. And yeah, that was filmed just north of Peterborough on my cousin's property. So when the world shut down, I knew that he had a little stone cottage on his property that I could sort of camp out at. And I knew that we could shoot feral goats and, you know, live off the land up there. So where I was like, well, if it's a zombie apocalypse, I'm heading there. Food, ammunition, and miles of nowhere to, you know, hunker down in. So, yeah, that was where that Outback Lockdown was filmed.
That cottage actually looked quite nice and comfortable.
Well, we did make it so. Like, the first time I went there was when I wanted to sort of prove to myself I could bow hunt goats by myself. You know, like quite often as a female, I'll go out hunting with other guys and everyone's like, oh, you're lucky they took you along and got you that nice goat. And I was like, hang on a minute. so So I went off to my cousin's property to spend 3 weeks by myself, just living off the land and what I could shoot with my own bow. And when I got to that stone cottage, it was about 1.5 meters deep in like kangaroo and pigeon poo. And I spent like 2 days just digging that stone cottage out and like sealing it up. But when Caleb and I went back, it was still in quite good condition. And, you know, we put a table in there and you know, we did make it our home. So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
How'd it go with the goats out there? Are they plentiful or hard to find still?
Look, they come in waves. So you've got, I mean, there's not a lot of food up there for anything. You know, you've got the kangaroos and the sheep and the goats all competing for the same resources. But what farmers have done is they've brought in a plentiful water source. So you will get the goats coming down from the north when the north starts to really dry out. And, you know, then the farmers now, they've put a, like, you know, $200 a goat price on their head. So you just need a good little family of goats and it makes it worth your while getting a helicopter muster in, you know. So people now have made a business of like, look, if you pay us for the day helicoptering, we'll muster in all your goats, and it's like $1,000 for the helicopter and you get $20,000 worth of goats quite easily. So, you know, when I went up there the first time by myself, I literally would stop at the water source and I'd be like, which one do I want? You know, you could hear them coming down and it would just be like, I'd shoot one and it would die at the trough and I'd drag it out of the way and the goats are still coming in. Like, you know, it would just be like thousands of them. So when I was trying to get Caleb to come along, I'm like, yeah, there's millions of goats. We'll have plenty of food to eat. And my cousin had just done a helicopter muster. And so he'd come in and there was probably like 10 goats on 36,000 acres then. So these little black hides, we chased them up and down the hills. Like you could see that in the TV show Outback Lockdown. There was just nothing. And then sort of we went up there just the other day and there's like, you know, they've moved sort of back in the area again. But we don't want the farmers to know because we're like, no goats here.
Yeah, the old, let me just see. Food.
Really?
Yeah, but they were just small.
We've definitely noticed because we hunt a few private properties up that way, and the farmers once upon a time didn't care, and then now it's like if you see a goat, nah, leave it. Thank you. I make too much money out of those things.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're lucky. We trade work, and my cousin doesn't mind us popping the occasional goat in the fridge. So, I mean, he knows that we're not going to get many with the bows. Sure thing.
Were you sustained solely on goat and roo, or did your cousin allow you to take sheep or something like that every now and then?
No, we didn't take sheep because his sheep had dropped to a really, really low number. So it was basically, the roos and the goats. And then, you know, there was occasionally some saltbush berries and stuff like that. But you know how dry it is up there. There's not a lot of bush tucker. So we both got pretty skinny because there wasn't a lot of fats in the diet. But, I mean, yeah, and we got excited when my cousin actually accidentally drove over a brown snake, and we cooked that up for dinner because that was like just something different. So, yeah, I mean, Caleb can hardly look at roo again now.
I was about to ask, which would you prefer, goat or roo?
Well, Caleb makes a mean goat curry, so that's definitely top. But, you know, I mean, I can eat anything. I just some of the things I've had to eat on my challenges, like, I don't know. So I'm not that fussy. Whereas, you know, his culinary background, he likes things to taste good. I'm just like, yeah, I'm all about, is it going to give me enough sustenance for the next day? Like, I'll just eat it.
Well, while we're talking about food, Ky, the next question is, what is your favorite food? So is it something weird and wonderful, or is it just pretty standard?
You know, I just love a good steak, you know, like a bit of Wagyu or something with all the fats through it. You know, I'm pretty plain girl when it comes to things like that. I mean, that with a bit of gravy and I'm just set. Nothing exotic.
Nice and simple. Yes, nothing can beat a good steak, to be honest. But what's the strangest thing you've eaten?
Well, I mean, I've eaten some strange animals, you know, like when you're on these survival shows, anything's fair game. Like if it moves, I'm going to kill it and I'm going to eat it. But the worst was probably tadpole. Like they are this mix of like tiny bones because they're trying to become frogs, right?
Yeah.
But this really snotty sort of like consistency and a little bit of a dirty fishy taste. Like it is disgusting, honestly. And I mean, but probably the weirdest thing I ate was we were eating snakes quite regularly in Louisiana, and we were just sort of cutting them up and putting them in a soup because that way you can drink the soup afterwards and you get the sustenance from it. I definitely prefer to just cook things over a fire, you know, burn it black at charcoal and then you can sort of eat anything. But we were making it into a soup, and we didn't cut the musk ducts of the snake off, and it was reptile mating season. So they were putting out these pheromones, and we were sort of stirring the soup, and it had this like greasy sort of oily look on the surface of it. And I'm like, ooh, like, I don't know about that. But we both took like a big sip, and it was so rancid we had to throw that snake out. But from that moment on, I could smell where the snakes were in the in the swamp. Like I don't know whether it's still the case now, but for a whole like 21 days, I was like, yep, there's going to be a snake over there, and this snake would like come swimming along. It was so weird.
Just on the snake cooking, what are the considerations? Just say for a venomous snake or something like that. Obviously, there's venom sacs you have to get rid of.
Well, you cut off their head. The venom's sort of located behind the fangs, right? So you're never going to eat the head of the snake. But the most important thing to remember is even after the snake's been dead a long time, the venom can sit in those fangs. So if you step on a snake's head and you get like the fang goes in your foot, even if it's been dead a while, it can still envenomate you. So the thing I always just remember is like, you know, I'll cut the head off and then like bury it with the fangs facing downwards quite deep if I'm going to be eating them. But to be honest, venomous snake tastes way better than non-venomous. And it's to do with the fact like the non-venomous are constrictors. So they're kind of bigger and they sort of a bit more muscly, I guess. And they just don't taste as good when I'm out there. And I'm like, well, do I take the danger and take, you know, risk versus reward? Am I going to take the one that could kill me, or am I going to take the one that tastes more delicious? And sometimes you've just got to go with the one that's going to be more delicious. So
that's very nice. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're trying to survive, you just got to get some proteins and calories and carbohydrates and whatever you need to sustain yourself in your body. What's it like being so hungry that you'll literally just eat anything? It's a pretty unfamiliar concept to a lot of people these days.
But it's interesting. Like, I think it's such a psychological thing. Like, you think about it, you get to about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I don't know. You guys might do intermittent fasting, or you might be okay with long periods of not eating. But most people, like, they have breakfast, and if their lunch starts to get a bit later on, they get all faint and a bit dizzy and lightheaded, and everyone's like, oh, I've got low blood sugar. You know, gosh, if I don't eat by 2 or 3, I'm going to die. And I'm just like, you've got 20 and a half more days to go before you're seriously in trouble, you know. So, I mean, I've got so hungry that, you know, there's a grasshopper there and I've swatted it and cooked it over the fire. I mean, I've eaten little firefly larvae and I've giggled doing it because they taste delicious, you know. But, yeah, I don't know. I think you'd be surprised at what you'll do when you get hungry enough. You know, like a lot of people say to me, I'd never eat that. And I'm just like, you've just never been hungry enough. You know, you see someone on these survival shows that are like, I am not eating that. You're like, yeah, you just wait. That'll look delicious in a few days.
Is there sort of barriers to go through with, like, obviously fighting for sort of survival with food? I imagine just say like sleep, you sort of get to that point and then you hit a second wind and you sort of like, it becomes easier after a bit. Is it hunger the sort of the same sort of thing, or?
100%. So I have a weird psychological thing that I don't miss what I can't have. So I'm the worst person out there because I won't let anyone talk about food. Everyone wants to talk about food, but I don't actually get that hungry if I know that I'm not going to get food. But your body goes through this thing, and like about day 3, you know, you're detoxing, but people think it's dehydration and starvation, but it's not. It's detox, you know, like the stuff that we don't even know we're addicted to, like sugars and chemicals in our processed foods. And obviously, like there's the caffeine, but if people smoke cigarettes and alcohol, like all of these things are incredibly addictive, but we don't realize because we've never just gone cold turkey without them. So, you know, people go through this thing. So like day 1, you're just like firing on adrenaline. Day 2, you start to get a bit tired and a bit dehydrated, and you get some water in you, but you're still feeling a bit off. And that's when everyone on the shows, you'll see them, they're like, I'm so dehydrated. It's like, well, you're detoxing, right? So day 3, 4, and 5, your body's panicking a bit because it's just going like, oh my God, I'm never going to eat again. Like, where is my food? What's going on here? So it's this real mental battle. But if you can fight through that, I always say day 5, 6, and 7 are the worst, you know, because that's when you start to be like, oh, you know, and you stand up and you feel like you're going to fall down. But if you don't eat by day 9 or 10, your body's like, so this is what we're doing then, okay? All right, well, this is our new normal. And then it finds this energy that I don't know where it comes from, but like day 10 to 18, you can still go without food. And then by about day 18 or 19, then your body's starting to eat the bits of itself that you really need to function. And that's when the brain starts to go. So it's a fascinating process. But if you can observe it and not get scared by it, you can then sort of stay in the game. Like in my challenges for Naked and Afraid, I've just been really unlucky, and they've put me in a lot of places where there haven't been a lot of food. Or, you know, I've moved in and the food's moved out and I can't go after it because you have to stay in a set area. And so it's been good to, like, the first time I went through was probably a little bit like, what the fuck, you know? But then the second and third and now the fourth, you know, the fourth time I'm just like, oh yeah, no, this is what this body's doing on this day. Let's just wait. Day 8 will be fine, you know? So a lot of it is a real mental game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you find that, like, once you've reached that period of adjustment, it's just calories in and calories out for your tasks? You prioritize tasks almost to your calorie intake. So like water,
100%,
fire, food.
Yeah. So I mean, depending on where you are, like there are locations that you can survive without fire. I've never been put in one. Like every location I've been in a survival, like for, you know, these sort of survival TV reality scenarios has been like, I need a fire or else I will die without it. And, you know, water is always going to be a priority. So I'm like, shelter, fire, water is every day for me. And then food is like a luxury if I get around to it. And you just have to decide what kind of food you're going to go for. You know, like, do I chase after that pig and burn 2,000 calories for what might be an unsuccessful hunt? Or do I scavenge around and get some grubs out of the tree where I'm not burning as much and I'm getting some good fat? So it's a calories in versus calories out decision after that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously, the other element in a show like Naked and Afraid is the fact you're naked.
Yeah.
How do you even notice that? Like, because you're busy surviving, is that just in the background, just a thing? You just don't have any clothes?
Yeah. So I mean, I was on the first season of this show, so nobody had any idea what it was, you know. And when they asked me, I said no twice, and they called me back. Like they were just like, no, but wait, we really need you. And they were really struggling finding females that they thought could last the time on this new show. And so we really were the social experiment for the rest of how this show ended up. And they didn't know what people would do or how they would cope. But, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the first season, but there were 6 episodes to the first season, and you've got beautiful beaches. You've got like bloody Maui and Costa Rica and Panama, Africa, like looks pretty cool, right? And then they're like, do you know where we're going to send the Australian? We're going to put her in a swamp. It's going to be cold and it's going to be dirty and it's going to be awful. And like, so I've seen all these locations and then suddenly I get my call and they're like, hey, we're going to send you to the swamp. I was like, screw you guys. But literally, like, I'm in a canoe, this guy's paddling me along, and then you get there and the whole crew's there and the producer comes over and they're like, okay, this is the time, you know, you need to take your clothes off now. And you just go, like, every single time I'm like, in my head I hear this little voice go, is it too late to back out? You know, like, it's just like I know what I signed up for, and I, you know, now I've done it before, but there's always that moment I'm just like, oh my God, that's right. But like, I took my clothes off and then I had to try and get out of this canoe with this complete stranger, this poor old gentleman who just paddled me along, and he'd been so sweet. He's like, I really like your hair, and I was like, this is just getting like, I'm feeling really weird about this now. But the second I'm in the water, I'm waist deep, and it is reptile mating season. So we know the alligators are more grumpy and they're vying for territory. I know that the cottonmouth snakes, you know, there were the venomous ones there. I know they're going to be all riled up. And my instruction from the so-called crocodile, like alligator expert, was just slide your feet slowly as you walk along the bottom of the mud. And if you touch one with your toes, back away from it. So that's my instruction.
No dramas.
Next minute, a snapping turtle takes your toe off.
Right. You know, like the ridiculousness of it. And so suddenly, you know, the last thing you're thinking about is, oh my gosh, there's my boobs. You're just thinking like, where are these alligators? So, yeah.
Yeah.
How does that work? So the camera crew follow you around on that show?
For half the time. So we have a crew there usually from about 9 or 10 to about 4 o'clock. And then we self-film and they have cameras set up around camp. I mean, it's more high-tech now, 10 years later. Then, like, they had a couple of GoPros way back 10 years ago, but then when I did the one in Montana last year, there was just like infrared lights up everywhere, and you know, it was very hard to find a place to pee that was off cameras because they had them everywhere. But I mean, technology's great. But yeah, usually, so hard, like most of the time you'll self-film or be filmed, and then, you know, but they're not allowed to talk to you. So they come in and they just stand there and they just start filming you, and you do feel a bit like an animal in a zoo. And the only time they'll communicate with you is if they want you to do something, like explain what you're doing there, you know, or can you just show me that, or can you do that again from camera? Other than that, and they just won't talk to you. So, yeah. But on the clothing bit, like everybody thinks it's like the whole, like, oh, they're naked, but what it is if you're looking at your like survival priorities, food, fire, water, shelter, and then rescue, but this is shelter. Like, this is your first layer of shelter in any emergency. And so all they're doing is they're just taking everything from you in that sense. And people really underestimate how much, like, shoes help. You know, like, in a survival scenario, the second your feet are gone, like, your survival just goes, your chances of survival goes down dramatically. So shoes, but then psychologically, like having something to cover you at night, or, you know, being able to escape from the biting insects, like, it's more that they're just taking your first shelter away from you before you get on, than like, ooh, you're going to see somebody's bum, you know? Yeah.
Sure, the producers are like, we're going to make millions.
And
Naked.
they thought that everyone was going to have sex out there. Like, I've spoken to the producers and they're like, oh, yeah, it's going to get really juicy. And I'm like, all right, firstly, none of you have obviously been in the outdoors camping before. And then none of you have obviously not brushed your teeth for like 21 days. And just like, there is nothing sexy. Like, I think maybe 300 couples have gone out now since that original season, and I think maybe that I know of, like 3 or 4 of them have ever sort of even played around. You just like you just feel awful.
In the first 24 hours, we need to keep warm of a night. Then after that, the stench. Oh, nah, that's hard class.
Did you come away with anything that you didn't sort of know about doing Naked and Afraid?
Did I what? Sorry?
Come away with anything new? Like, did you learn a lot from that?
I mean, yes and no. Like my first book, Girls Own Survival Guide, had been written before I'd even gone out on Naked and Afraid. And so I guess what I learnt was the attitudes of survival that I'd written in that book really do get you through. Like it's nice to when you write something and then you're like, oh shit, that actually works. You know, like, oh, good. So that was good. But I didn't learn anything about myself, or you know, like you always pick up little bits of extra survival stuff, but most of my stuff I learned before these challenges. And I think maybe the one in the Amazon, I learned the most about myself. But yeah, I mean, you do have the potential to learn and pick up lots of really cool things. I mean, I learned you can make a fire on water. You know, I never really thought about that, but yeah, you pick up little things along the way for sure.
Do they go through like any sort of coaching or anything prior to this? Because they're obviously selecting their candidates through some sort of vetting process. Do they then go through like an area brief of what to expect?
I mean, the vetting process was really strict in the beginning, but then they wanted to keep the show going, you know, and I think that they sort of started letting just like, you know, at first it was like, these are hardcore survival experts. And then like later they've got, we have Mary, she's a Zumba instructor from California, you know, he just sort of like, she likes camping and knows how to use a can opener. And you're just sort of like, okay. You know, they just sort of went from like that. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of very skilled people that go on the show. But I mean, for me, anybody can do this show. You know, it's here. So you can be a Zumba instructor that knows how to use a can opener. But if you can be positive in the face of adversity, and if you can problem solve, and you know, if you can just keep moving and keep doing things and improvising, like you can get through this 21 days no matter who you are. So you don't have to have skills to do it. That's sort of, I guess, one of the first things that I will say about it. But yeah, so they do this vetting process, and then you're meant to have a local expert who comes along, and that you spend like a couple of hours on a day before going into a location with them. And they do send you like a bunch of information about the location, but I never read it because it leads to disappointment. You know, like they're like, you could have in the Amazon, you could have coconuts and mangoes and chocolate fruit, and there's really beautiful fruit that tastes like ice cream, and you get really excited. You're like, man, there's going to be a fruit that tastes like ice cream, and then they put you into their location, and you're like, none of that stuff is here. It's all off season. I don't even get bananas. There's no bamboo. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. I think that disappointment can be one of the biggest killers in a survival scenario. So I don't tend to read those booklets, but you do get to spend time with an expert. But 95% of the time, and it's not in arrogance, it's just a fact. Like, I probably do know a bit more than the expert that they're taking us in with, but that expert might be able to say, look, this mushroom is really deadly and this caterpillar like gives an electric shock. So you can pick up a few little bits of pieces.
Yeah, that'd be handy to know.
Yeah.
Don't ever
Now, Ky, you've done some pretty interesting stuff over your life, but what was your first job?
You know, I saw that question and I was trying to think what my first job was. I feel like it was fruit picking. Like when I was 15, you know, like I did fruit picking. I did postal. I was a checkout chick at Woolies, you know. I mean, I did all those sort of basic jobs. But the first sort of real job would have been an outdoor guide. So I got a Bachelor of Business Management. You can tell. Yeah, I use that a lot. My dad always likes to say, this is where a Bachelor of Business Management gets you, like barefoot in the desert. And then I finished that and I decided to become an outdoor guide. So I did rock climbing, kayaking, sailing, bushwalking, abseiling, and just took everyone from like corporate groups to juvenile offenders to general public, school groups, everyone into the outdoors. So that was sort of my first real job that I did for about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. I did that out of Adelaide with a company called Venture Corporate Recharge. So it was a company founded by an amazing guy called Mark Orrick. And if you look him up, he's incredible. But he died on Everest very young, like not long after I finished working there. So, but incredible human being. But yeah, it was with him.
Oh, nice.
So is this before or during when you had your car accident?
Yeah, so the car accident was probably the catalyst to go in the outdoors. So I was doing my Bachelor of Business Management when I had the car accident. Yep. And I did break a bone in my back, and I was flat on my back for like 3 months inside, and then had a brace and sort of went back to uni with like one of those tables and had to do all my lessons lying on the ground. And I just decided I never wanted to be inside again. You know, I was probably going to be a marketing manager of some, you know, chain resort or something along those lines. That's what I was looking at, you know, still travel, but have probably an office job. And then I was like, I can't do it. I just can't be indoors for that length of time. And my rehab, one of my friends was this Icelandic dude, and he was just like, you come rock climbing with me. And I was just like, ooh, that sounds a bit dangerous with this back thing I've got going on. And he's like, nah, come along. Ties it off to a bloody grass tree, which I now know has like the shallowest root systems ever. And I'm like, you know, just like, I'm surprised we didn't die. But yeah, and that's sort of where I started doing the rock climbing and just really loved it and moved into the outdoor pursuit from there.
So how did that bridge across to being a stunt woman?
Oh gosh, so I think, see, this doctor told me I would never be physically active again for the rest of my life. So I'm lying there, I'm in the hospital after the car accident. The guy's like, hey, guess what? You've got a broken back. You're never going to be able to play tennis again. You know, like any sports. And I think that if you get to know me, the worst thing or the best thing you can do is to say no. And I'm just going to be like, what? It's a curse. I've ended up in some really hectic situations as a result. But one of the things that, yeah, so I think I pushed myself really far being an outdoor guide. But then I was looking for a new career because I'd spent like 6 years just barely sleeping at home. I was outside all the time, and I was starting to get a little bit jaded, and I wanted everyone's experience in the outdoors to still be special. And it's not going to be good if I'm like, yeah, it's just another bloody bird, or, you know, like, oh God, this tent's rough, you know, like I didn't want to be the one complaining out there. So I was literally playing a game on a sand dune, and a kid on a school camp was just like, oh, you should be a stunt woman. You know, I probably cartwheeled down the sand dune or something. And I was just like, well, geez, that sounds interesting. You know, like never heard of it. I was one of those people that thought the actors did all their own stunts. And suddenly I'm like, you mean there's people that get to dress up and they get to do really cool, fun stuff? And, you know, and your face, like I was really shy at the time. And I was like, your face doesn't even do it. You know, no one will even know it's you, but you could do that stuff. And I was always dressing up as a superhero as a kid. You know, I was always like playing with my 2 boy cousins, like Batman and Batgirl and all that sort of thing. And just the idea that you could get paid to play a superhero was just like, what, really?
After breaking your back too. Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to become a stunt.
Right. And then I was like, and that could be even harder than what I'm doing right now. You know, let's see what this body can do. So yeah, no movies were being filmed in Australia, and I just headed off to Vancouver and just wandered around asking anyone that would listen to me, you know, how do I become a stunt woman? And finally someone told me a few things, and then I really like the two main ways you can get into stunts is sort of fighting or gymnastics. And I realized I was like 26 at the time, I think, and I realized I was never going to become an Olympic gymnast at 26. Could barely cartwheel, to be honest. And then so I decided to fight, and for some reason I'm a natural. I just any weapon I pick up, it just feels like it at home in my hand. And you know, like swords, long staff, Carly sticks, anything. I just really took to it. And so 3 years I trained almost every day and managed to get in because of fighting.
Oh wow,
Nice.
your first gig was that Blind Spot or?
No, that was my last gig. So my first was on a show called Dead Like Me, but my second, I got to fight Hercules. You know Kevin Sorbo when he used to play Hercules? I don't know, you guys might be too young.
Yeah.
But, you know, you had Xena, Warrior Princess, and then you had Hercules, right? And I'd watched Hercules as a kid, and suddenly he was on a show called Andromeda. And he had to fight this red-headed girl who was my height, so they just popped the wig on me, and suddenly I'm there, and I'm like, I'm fighting Hercules. It's like in this like little tight corset and leather outfit. Like, I felt very, very cool. It was a good day.
Bloody hell.
What sort of mishaps sort of happen on the set when you're being a stunt woman?
What? Sorry, what?
Like mishaps or any sort of, I guess,
Well,
mistakes, injuries or...
Yeah, I mean, definitely that day. Like, I'd never really been around these things, and I had like this little corset top on, and I had to do this big spinny move. And I was just like, we were doing the rehearsal, you know, all the lights were on. They were checking to see what the moves are going to be for lighting. I do this spin, and I'm like, and both boobs fall out. And I was just like, and the wardrobe guy just comes over. He's like, put some tape on that.
This is not the sort of movie we're making. What are you doing?
I just like had to suck it up and carry on. But you know, there's lots of, you know, I mean, you are doing the things that are dangerous, right? You're doing the things that if it was safe, the actors would be doing it. So every day, you know, it's a bruise or a cut or a break or a sprain or a whiplash, or, you know, like, it's very rare that, and because I was doing the fight sequences, I got known for being able to do fights and big smashes, which is not the thing that you want to get known for. Right? All those people out there that want to become stunt performers get known for being the ones that run away from the danger or something, you know, like, it's way easier. But yeah, so I got to do some really cool wire stunts, and my rock climbing background, they just felt good putting me on a rig. And my like third or fourth job was doubling Sharon Stone in Catwoman. And Sharon Stone, she had a little blonde hair, but I just put the wig on. Like, it's more your height and weight that you get jobs for, because they, you know, if they see this, then they know it's not the actor, and they just put wigs and the costume on and you're good to go. So, you know, I mean, and they, for some reason, Sharon Stone had decided she wanted to wear $4,000 shoes just flown from Italy. And so I'm doing this big smash, like Halle Berry, like, swings around, double kicks me in the stomach, and I fly through the air and smash into like a poster board with real glass. The glass breaks and it falls down on me, and I have to land, and I have to like put this thing like down in a certain position through all this smashing, because they've already established that that's where that pole is, like in later shots. And at the last second, the wardrobe lady comes up and she's like, could you really look after those shoes, because you've only got 2 pairs. Like, sure enough, first take, I'm like, yeah, and I look down and the heel's like broken off the shoe. I'm like, oh. Italy, right? Okay. So
I have to ask, what's it like working with celebrities? because obviously they're just normal people, but we look at them as a celebrity. So, we look at them completely different as to how they would, I guess, really be. Is it like anyone good to work with, bad to work with?
I always say it's like any business. You work in a business, there's dickheads and there's really nice people that you really like that are down to earth. And the film industry is absolutely the same. It does cater to a certain demographic that is very narcissistic, and then you take this person who really does just want to be seen, and then you give them everything like a spoiled child, like, oh, your trailer's not big enough. I want a bigger trailer because that person's got a bigger trailer. And then they're like, here you go. And they're like, wow, if I throw a temper tantrum, I get these things, I just want the blue M&Ms. And they're like, oh, okay, just give them the blue M&Ms. We need to get them to set, so it is an industry that does foster that. But within that, like you get your Chris Hemsworths and your Hugh Jackmans, and the
Aussies are okay.
Like, what's that?
So the Aussies are okay.
The Aussies are great. Sir Anthony Hopkins, like Sir Anthony, like he has a sir for acting. And he came to set and he had like these bright orange pants on, and he was like, isn't this wonderful, this job that we do? Isn't this fun? What are we doing here today? And that was when he was playing like Odin on Thor, and all he's doing is riding a fake black horse, and this is a guy that's won Academy Awards for his acting, and he's like, has to just be like, whoa, on a horse. And he's like, this is great, isn't it? So like, you just think, and I loved Arnold Schwarzenegger. And a lot of people are like, well, on the fence about him. But the story I'll never forget is he had a childhood friend from way, way back at wherever he's from, Austria, I guess. And his friend was down on his luck. He lost his job and he was too old to get a job anywhere else, wouldn't get employed anywhere else. So Arnold Schwarzenegger said he needed someone to read his scripts out loud to him so that he could memorize them before going on set. And he said nobody else could do it but for this guy. And so this guy gets paid by production to come and read the scripts with Arnold. So he feels like he's doing a job, that he's getting money for and helping him learn his lines. But like he just helped out this childhood friend. And I'd like anyone who has that kind of heart, I'm like, it's good in my book.
Yeah, bloody hell. He seems quite like he would be a genuine kind of guy, really. He does.
You reckon?
Yeah.
He's hilarious. He's
Definitely.
an absolute character.
Definitely.
He sung me happy birthday. I'll never forget it. It was like midnight. My birthday was like just happened, and the actress I was doubling brought out a cake, and he was sitting 2 seats down at the big craft service table, and he was just like, happy birthday. And I'm like, oh God, this is the moment, like texting my dad under the table, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger's like singing me happy birthday.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah. Hey, Ky, how do you prepare your body for like basically being put through the ringer? Is fitness a big priority for you, or like recovery? What's sort of your process there?
I mean, stunts and survival are pretty different. So for stunts, yoga was probably one of the biggest things for me. And like a lot of the glutamine, collagen sort of supplements, for some reason I was vegetarian through my stunt years. And I feel like I would have recovered a lot better if I wasn't. But definitely, like yoga, because if I bent, then I wasn't going to break. Like if you're stiff going into a stunt and you can't relax those muscles, then you're more likely to tear something. So that was a big part. And of course I was fighting. So, a lot of my training happened on set because I had a base, like I had a really good kickboxing base, but then you get, someone always wants to put their twist on it. So like blind spot, you've got, she's basically Krav, but like the guy that was working with me was a Taekwondo master and amazing, and Kung Fu expert too. Like he was just incredible. So, you know, then I'm working with him, so I'm able to pick up some of those moves. And I was really lucky with Blind Spot in that I doubled Jamie for 10 years. So when I got to working like with her on that character, I got to design the way Jane fought as well. You know, so if the fight coordinator's like, I want you to do this, and I'll be like, oh, you know, Jane would probably do it more like this, you know. So it was a really cool position to be in by then, to be able to help design that on Blind Spot.
Yeah, it was an outstanding show, by the way.
Thank you. I loved working on it. But yeah, but then you've got like the survival stuff. I mean, as I said, for me, I cut back on everything that I'm going to be addicted to out there. You know, like most of what wipes people out in those first 2 to 5 days is addictions. So I'm off caffeine at least 2 months, if not 3, which is really hard because I do love coffee. And then a lot of people put on weight. But I find if I'm putting on weight, the food that puts on weight is the sugars and the bad fats, and my body just doesn't do well on those. So I get sick. So I find what works best for me is I cut back on my calories and I go to just clean foods. Like, I mean, I'm mostly carnivore anyway, so it'll be eggs and meat. And then I drop back to about 800 calories a day, so that when I go out there, I don't go from 4,000 to nothing. I go from 800 to nothing. And my body just sort of goes, oh, that's okay. Well, that's not too bad. You know, and then I walk barefoot all the time. So that's one prep that I would do, is just toughening up my feet. But I usually end up in wet environments where the calluses just sog off anyway. So I don't know. There's not a lot of other preparation. It depends. I just did a Frozen episode, which is a Frozen season, which is coming out in June. And, you know, I do a lot of cold plunges anyway, but I sort of just up the cold exposure and...
Yeah, I'd like to do that, but I don't know, a bath full of ice.
You stand in front of the ice. Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, I'll dip my toe in and be like, nah.
It seemed like a great idea, but now you're in front of it.
It's hard, but I always think, like, I did 16 years in stunts, and as a carnivore and a person that tries to do cold water exposure every day, I don't have arthritis, and I'm so fit and so strong and so healthy at my age when I should be riddled. Like, I've broken and torn and busted this body and put it through the ringer, like whiplash for like 3 months straight, where I couldn't even, like, on some shows I couldn't even like turn my neck, and, you know, like just multiple bones busted, and I should be a wreck. And so I just think cold exposure and mostly carnivore is why I'm not.
So it's amazing how like the tables have turned with the whole carnivore diet, because my father's era, you talk about the food pyramid back then to him, and it's like bread and butter. Like, that's a staple and you can get by. But now, obviously, we've seen the whole vegan movement and things like that, and everyone's now like, well, actually, eating meat's better, like more nutritious, more protein, you know, way better for you, leaner, and you don't have the sugars, which is, that's a killer. Ugh.
Well, a lot of the research, I'm sure you guys know this, but a lot of the research on the red meat diet was done looking at fast foods and hamburgers and things. So they weren't looking at like what was happening when you were just eating meat. They were looking at meat and veg. So with the veg, you've got the stodge of like the potatoes, or, you know, fries or chips or whatever they're having with the, like the breads, the butters, the red meat, and they all just lumped it in together as being red meat's bad for you. But I mean, I tell you, from my personal experiments on my own body, like I had an operation and I was in a wheelchair for 3 months as a vegetarian. I had the exact same operation 3 years later as a carnivore, and I was walking within 4 days.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit.
Exact same operation.
Wow.
It's like just, and I went into my challenge in Louisiana as a vegetarian, And it took me about 3 years to recover from that first Naked and Afraid. And the last 3, I've walked in as carnivore and walked out and started training and like barely blinked. It's amazing for my body for sure.
What caused your transition from vegetarian to carnivore?
Well, I was a vegetarian because I had a liver condition that the doctors said I take too much iron from my food, and they said the only way to manage it is either be vegetarian or donate blood every week. And I was like, oh, who has time to donate blood every week? So I just became vegetarian, and I just got sicker and sicker and sicker. But I did it for about 20 years, and I just sort of battled through it and had all the supplements and, you know, like all the stomach issues and all the tablets to try and get everything working properly, and just was like, no, this is really healthy for me. And then finally I was getting really yellow, and someone's like, you know what, I've heard of that liver issue that you have, and I've heard that someone cured it from being carnivore. And I was like, right. The next day I just had like 3 steaks.
What was it like eating steak for the first time in 20 years?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh,
You didn't sort of
My
wing
body's like,
yeah, no weaning
Yeah.
required, just
Yeah,
3
just
steaks.
smash it.
3 porterhouses, boom, the next day.
yeah. And it was incredible because I'd been taking bloods, you know, because you have to before all these challenges, and all my blood work was all over the place. And since being carnivore, I've taken blood tests a few times for other shows, and my bloods are perfect, you know. So everyone's just like, well, you're missing all this nutrients, or you're not getting this, or you're not getting that. And I'm like, well, I don't know, but look at this. This is scientific proof that for my body, this is working, you know. So, and my body was just starved for it. Like I always say, you know, when you put a bit of broccoli in, you don't get that instant hit of just, like when you take a bite of red meat, I feel it just like kicking into all the places it needs to kick in, and my body healing and repairing and nourishing. And I've never got that from a piece of broccoli yet.
You think that was due to your 20 years of being vegetarian?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, my friends were a bit shocked.
So I've got a question. So mostly carnivore. What's your cheat day look like now? Everyone's got an Achilles heel, like apple pie or something like that. Surely.
Is that your Achilles heel?
Yeah, it is.
Gosh, my cheat day. I mean, I do like ice cream, so maybe some ice cream. But I just honestly, I think I've got 20 years of catching up on meat and stuff. You know, maybe pasta, maybe a lasagna or something like that. I mean, my cheat days aren't spectacular. I sit there and I'm like, gosh, I mean, this is probably someone's healthy day when I'm like, oh, this is really bad. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Hey, Ky, you mentioned some pretty cool people earlier, some actors. But who inspires you the most?
You see, I saw this question too, and like when I was like, quite often I'm on podcasts and I get asked who I like would think of as my mentors or people I wanted to aspire to be as, and I never saw anyone doing what I wanted to do that I said that's who I want to be like. You know, like there wasn't anyone really visible. There wasn't any females in the survival realm. There wasn't any females that I saw that were really hunting, and there wasn't any stunt females that I knew of, you know, like, but my inspiration, like I quite often teach kids stuff, you know, like I do a Camp Courage. And honestly, I get my inspiration from working with other people and seeing what they're prepared to do to create change in their lives. You know, like I feel like my battles are really physical, but other people just are going through such harder things than me. You know, like when I was in the Amazon, this 21 days, it was an Alone episode, like not of Alone, the TV show, but it was a Naked and Afraid Alone. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. You know, they put me in wet season, so everything was soaked. Like, to get a fire going, it was a nightmare. I had massive storms come through all the time. In wet season, I mean, you guys as hunters know that if animals don't have options, they're all going to come to the same place. As soon as you have water everywhere and food sources everywhere, you move in, they move out. They can go anywhere they want. And so I couldn't get food. Like, I had traps everywhere. I had snares, I had deadfalls, I made a fish basket, even though I knew that the water wasn't conducive to it. I was trying anything, you know, I was just desperate for food. And I was eating like little firefly larvae, and they grew in cacao nuts, so they were delicious. But I was just getting like 7 little maggots a day that I was eating, and it was just like, it was desperate. And I would just lie there, and like, I have a couple of kids I mentor, and I was like asking them, like, one of them was sort of on the edge of deciding whether she wanted to keep going or not. Like, she was really in a bad place. And I thought, God, if I ask her to keep going through her battles, like, I can't quit on this, you know. So it's sort of seeing the people around me and the choices they're making and the courage that they have within different situations, I think inspires me.
It's a good answer. Yeah,
It's a bloody good answer.
it is.
I like it. Yeah, wow. I'm glad we changed that question for this season, by the way, boys.
Yeah, it's a much better question.
Because this is the only question we've changed in 5 and a bit seasons, because we used to have what do we have?
Who would you rather trade
Who would
places
you
with?
trade places with? And so many people towards the end were just like, nah, I like my life. I don't want to trade places with anyone. So,
but isn't that brilliant? Like
good.
isn't that an amazing change in society? You know, like, there just shows that this discontent that maybe people had 4 or 5 years ago, or looking outwards and looking for more, they've actually managed to carve out a life that they're pretty content with. I think that's a brilliant thing to see change.
It is.
Definitely.
It is. It is.
For sure. All right. Well, let's roll on.
And would have been my answer too.
Exactly. Well, on your travels, what is the most dangerous thing you've done, Ky? And you probably
Oh
did more
man.
dangerous stuff than most people.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I did 16 years of every time I stepped out of the trailer, I sort of did dangerous things for a living. And then I just sort of continued that with Naked and Afraid. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that what we're doing out there is real. You know, it is, you know, people are used to reality TV, you know, like Kim Kardashian, they have extras that play those people in the background. And so when they go to a bar, they're not actually going to a bar, they do have performers around them and stuff, you know, like, reality isn't real. But being dumped in Naked and Afraid is the most real experience you'll ever have. And I think that's sort of part of the reason that I love it, is you have to be completely in the moment because of those dangers. You know, every footstep that you put in a place, you have to be aware of in case you step on a cottonmouth snake or an alligator. You know, I mean, you can't go and get your water from the same place twice, because alligators remember and learn, you know. So you're just constantly on the lookout. So it's been a kind of 20-year battle with danger with me, I think. But, so shit, I don't know. I mean, I guess my first extraction on the Naked and Afraid one, we were in waist deep alligator water, and the biggest alligators like I've ever seen in my life. Like, when you come face to face with these creatures, you just go like, they haven't evolved since the dinosaur time. And like, I've bow hunted alligators and got one, and I've cleaned the skull myself, and its brain is like this big, but they are like, they're built to be predators. So I'm in this lagoon, and I can see 5 massive alligators around the lagoon, and they're like, okay, get it ready. The helicopter's going to come in and rescue you guys. And then the helicopter comes in and all the alligators sink under the water. So now I know that I don't know where they are. You know, when I've got eyes on, I'm all right. But now I'm like, they could be anywhere. And so if you've ever watched that first episode with me and Billy, or if you ever watch it in the future, you just see me and I turn and I look at Billy and then I throw everything away and I start swimming because I'm just like, I don't have to be faster than the alligator. I just got to beat this guy to the helicopter. So, no, you're never safe with me.
One thing you brought up about like being real for survival. Someone that's sort of known to be not real is, have you met Bear Grylls before?
I haven't, but he did write a really nice comment in the front of my first book. So people think I do know him. But I know, you know, I know people who know him. And I know that he did fudge a lot of stuff. But I have a bit of admiration for him because he got thousands of people in the outdoors and thousands of people excited, you know, and for us as hunters, we need the outdoors to be there and we need it to be preserved and we need it, I mean, not just so we can go in and get our dinner, but like the lands that we roam in, you know, and the places that make our heart sing, they're all the outdoor places. And before Bear Grylls came along, it was declining so rapidly that no one was caring about it, you know, but he just got a whole generation excited about getting outside, even if he told them all to drink their own pee in a survival scenario. Just don't do it.
Have you drinking your own
Look,
pee?
I mean, if you're cold, you're cold, but don't ever drink your own urine, all right?
I think that miss.
Yeah. No, just do the bubbler next time bushmate.
No, thanks. No, it's a fair point though, because not everything can be, you know, 100% genuine in that, you know, you're just there surviving by yourself. There's camera crews and whatever. So you are right that Bear has copped some flack for, you know, not being surviving like in its purest essence. But yeah, you've raised a fair point, Ky, in that he's brought surviving and the outdoors to so many people's attention.
And the lesson learned is still the lesson that's like comes in useful as well, regardless if it's in that sort of dire need situation or not.
Yeah. I mean, still don't drink your own pee. That's really not the right lesson to learn. But the amount of people I have to correct with that one, I'm like, if you drink your pee, your kidneys are going to get poisoned and you're going to die quicker. But, unless you drink it when you're not dehydrated, but then that's just recreational, you know, like that's just a party choice. I don't know.
I mean, I just think if it's your kidneys, you just be going, why am I processing this a second time? What's going on here?
Yeah, 100%. But, you know, I mean, apart from that, he does have some good ideas.
Very true. So obviously you're quite passionate about sharing your survival knowledge with people. How did you get down the path of writing a book and several books since? How did that come about?
Yeah, so the first one, I just saw a Dilbert cartoon. Like, I don't know if you remember Dilbert. It's a little accountant nerd. And he was sort of talking to a girl in his office in this cartoon. And he was saying, I've got gold and I've got water bottles in my basement and I got protein bars. And he turns to her and he's like, what are you going to do if the end of the world comes? And she says, well, I have your address. And I was just like, what the is this what men think women are going to do when the shit hits the fan? We're going to be like, where's the men? Like, and I don't know, I took offense to it, you know, maybe I shouldn't have, but in that moment I sat down and wrote a book in 8 days that was designed to let women know how spectacular they can be in survival scenarios. Because what Naked and Afraid showed us, I don't know how many episodes you've seen, but women are really good at surviving And that was unexpected. Like, the network did not expect women to do so well. They honestly thought, we'll put these army dudes out with these hippie chicks, and the hippie chicks will be crying, and the army dudes will save them, and they'll all live happily ever after. And what happened was the army dudes had big muscles, and they really needed food. And they came in chewing tobacco and drinking coffee and spitting out their plug as they sort of stepped into the wilderness, and they got knocked on their asses, you know. So the first 5 or 6 days, the men were useless. And that's what we are physiologically and evolutionarily designed to do. Women, you can have 1 man and 50 women and the human race will continue. You know, it's not going to work if you have 1 woman and 50 men. So we have pockets of fat, and we have a little bit of like, I know it's a sore subject, but we have a little bit of a better tolerance to pain. And we have this ability, those first 5 or 6 days, to just get through. You know, we don't consume as many calories. So it is an evolutionary trait that women do really well in those first 5 days. After day 6 or 7, it all balances out. And, you know, I find that I can really do with the muscle that comes along with the bigger guys, you know, so for the stuff to keep carrying on. And so I did write a book about it, and Penguin picked it up, which I was really surprised at, and Penguin published it, and that was great. And then I thought my writing days were done. And then, gosh, it was probably only a year and a half ago now, I just got an Instagram message from somebody who was like, hey, you seem really passionate about survival. Would you like to write a book for us? And I looked up the publishing company, and it was a really big publishing company. And I got back to them and had a meeting with them. And they were just looking for a survival expert to write the next sort of SAS survival guide. And I don't think they realized what a nerd they'd picked on, to be honest. I was like, right, let me get my, let me tell you what I think about survival. So all my years of anything I've ever done since I was a kid came spewing out on page, and they made a beautiful book out of it. You know, like, I take credit for the words, but the way they put it together was just beautiful. And it, I mean, it's, yeah, it's sort of the encyclopedia of survival to update the SAS survival guide. And I was really intimidated when I got asked to write it. You know, you're putting yourself on a world stage, and indeed, you know, like, it's sold through Europe, it's sold in, you know, North America, South America, it's sold in Australia, New Zealand. And it's put up there as like the survival guide. But I wanted to write it because I believe survival's anyone's game. You know, like, those SAS survival guides, they assume that you have stuff with you when you get into these scenarios. You know, they're like, well, you pull out your knife. And I'm like, what if you don't have a knife? You know, so my book has really got down to bare bones basic of when an unexpected situation happens to you. You know, like, you're not going to be able to be like, well, I've got my bug out bag here, and I have my food, fire, water, shelter right here. You know, you can't predict a natural disaster quite often. You know, you don't know when your place is going to be consumed by bushfire or flooded. Or so I just wanted to make it a book for everybody and anybody to read, and, you know, learn the things that they can prepare for, but also be really incredibly adaptable when the unexpected happens. So I wasn't sure how it would be met, but people seem to like it, so that's nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I used to have the SAS survival book, actually.
Yeah, same.
That was a great book, and I lost it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a new updated version. Survive.
Did you find
you
at
can
all?
pick up a copy at the Adelaide Archery Shop.
I didn't
Need to take a trip down there.
Yeah.
Did you find that, like, not trying to be sexist or anything, but up until a certain point, this is a very man-dominated sort of industry, like the whole
100%.
survival thing and that? How did you find, like, getting into that with, obviously, you know, being a woman?
I think everything I've ever chosen to do has been male dominated. You know, like, the outdoor industry was male dominated, stunts was male dominated, and survival is male dominated. And honestly, I never thought about it. I wanted to do it. And so I did it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I did come up against things like, you know, if I take a picture with Caleb and myself, people are like, oh, it's so cute. Caleb takes you out and he lets you do those things, you know. And I'm just like, and I just take a deep breath and I'm like, you know what? If you said to me the world was coming to an end and you could choose one person and you put me next to a massive army dude, like, and some, like most of the time I'm wearing like some stupid pink dress or like a, you know, like I like my dresses, I like my cute outfits, you know, you put me standing next to a big army dude in camo, even I'm going to be the one going, I'll go with him, you know. So I get it, you know, but you better to come with me because I promise you, you'll survive. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't hold it against the world for it being that way. You know, I mean, I like my men to be manly men. Like, I don't like this wave of labeling masculinity as toxic, you know. So I think if as a female, I'm not trying to be a man, I find it doesn't then make any difference, you know, like, I mean, and I just choose not to get offended by it. You know, if someone's like, oh, you're like the female Bear Grylls, instead of like, well, you're like Ky Furneaux and isn't it amazing you're a woman? They, you know, I'm just like, yeah, isn't he really cool? You know, I just think, I don't know. I just choose not to get offended by it and choose to celebrate, you know, the maleness in men and then I get, you know, that I play in that field and don't lose my femininity either, you know. I just think.
I only ask, well, we've said it a few times, and that's that the industry needs more females in it, because females are typically more vocal, and what's the word? Sort
Eloquent?
Yeah, a little bit more eloquent.
As he stumbles over his words.
Easier to talk to.
Well played, Josh.
But and a lot more times easier to talk to and approach than what men do, and the industry dies, especially for the hunting side of things. A lot of guys, especially in South Australia, they just want to not be heard or seen and make any waves so they can just continue to do their sport, but not realizing that's a death sentence for your sport. So, you know, like, huge advocate for young people, women and men to get into it, to be honest, and get more vocal. But that's the only reason why I ask, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, and as I said, like when I was growing up, you didn't see women playing footy. You know, I played footy because my dad didn't have a son, you know, and I could bowl a middle stump cricket ball, you know, but you didn't see it. And I went to like Women's Health, Women in Sports Awards just recently, and a lot of these women were sort of leaders for women becoming great in a lot of these different, like, you know, there was women cricketers and footballers and all this sort of thing, and they were the leaders. They're the ones that are creating the change, and I feel like you'll see it come through now. You know, like people see us as females doing these things, and it makes it okay for the younger generation coming up. So I think you'll probably see an increase in it now. Like, I had an experience in America. Myself and my partner on the last Naked and Afraid, Gabby, were doing a book tour with my book, and I brought her along because I'm a bit shy in those kind of situations, and she's a total extrovert. So I hate when people come down, oh my God, did you do that? And I'm like, no. Like, I just get really embarrassed. Like, it's someone else. But there was a guy, and he was a single father, and he brought his daughter to come and speak with Gabby and myself. And we just had a chat, and we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. And this girl like had short hair, and she obviously had like attention deficit disorder or something along those lines. She was, you know, struggling with all the sensory stuff. But we chatted to her and for a long time. And he left and came back, and he said, thank you so much, because my daughter was thinking of having gender change surgery because she thought she wanted to be like me. and you showed her that she could be a female and still love these things.
Yeah. Wow.
Like,
That's awesome.
That's outstanding. Yeah.
You know, like, and this is why it's important that these women that, you know, that you do hunt with, and the, you know, the people that are coming out, the females that are coming up in this, it's really important they are visible for the people to come, you know. So I think it's a great thing when you see that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, definitely.
That is actually very outstanding, because, you know, gender and the whole identity sort of thing, issues around that is such a hot topic at the moment. So it's great to have very strong females in roles and in careers that can show. I mean, I'm a dad. I've got 7-year-old twin daughters, and
amazing.
Yeah, they're you know, they love being able to see females do things that they're interested in and are quite clearly females, and, you know, demonstrating all their female characteristics as well, but doing something that might be a little bit more male dominated in general. So props to you for doing, you know, things that are in a male dominated industry, and saying, well, hey, I'm a chick and I can do this just as well as the guys, and
or better,
you know, or better. Yeah.
Well, it's different, you know, like, I mean, it's, you know, I don't think it's better or worse. I think this is like a strange thing. Like, it's just different, you know, like I train every day, but see these little arms, like, they're never going to be, like, I'm never going to be as buff as you guys. So, you know, like, I can carry a very small goat, but you know what? I can process that goat really quickly and carry it in bits, you know. So it's like, and we might not do it the same, but we do it differently, and it neither's better or worse. So I think it's like, that's something. I mean, and I'm not saying this to you guys, I'm saying it in general. Like, I don't think I ever need to compete, you know, like we are who we are, even within genders, you know, you have people with strengths and weaknesses. And at the end of the day, it's just about working your way around so that your weaknesses can become your strengths, you know. Like this last Naked and Afraid challenge I did, I was with this gorgeous girl called Gabby. She's not a survivalist. She says so herself. I call her a survivalist, but she doesn't think she is, because she doesn't have the survival skill set. She saved our lives because she could sew, you know. Like, we were in Montana in snowstorms and minus 19 degrees temperatures, and she made us an outfit that kept us so warm, and we were the only team that didn't have cold issues, and it was because of her sewing skills. So at the end of the day, you know, you're good at what you're good at, and you make your strengths count, I think.
Well, we're all sort of evolved to sort of survive as a community, not as ourselves alone. So
you're stronger.
100%.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Definitely
I
does.
actually think it's cool sometimes, the female perspective on things, or the skill base that, you know, stereotypically women are better at, like things like attention to detail or taking ego out of things and stuff like that, like especially in hunting. So quite often, I mean, I don't think I've ever hunted with a female, to be honest.
Yeah, Beth.
Oh, true, one. But you know, it was different in that she saw things very differently to us, and it wasn't like men can be very ego dominated and like it's a competition. I've got to get a bigger fellow than you, sort of thing. But you know, it just none of that, and it was actually quite refreshing, because she had a completely different view on what we're out there doing. And I think Couch is right. Like, you know, we're kind of designed to do things as a community, and yeah, maybe typically men were the hunters and women were the gatherers and whatever. But
it's been proven opposite, actually. Well, not opposite, but there was equal sort of responsibilities.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I just think it's cool. We should all just be out there doing it together, and enjoying it.
Definitely, and it's what you enjoy. You know, like I really suck at weaving, you know, like I'm just not designed to be the people are back doing the baskets, you know. Like, we would all die if we had to depend on my baskets for food, but I can hunt, you know, so I just go with my strings. So a question for you guys, do you find it like more, just out of curiosity as a female, do you find it more like of an ego thing to hunt with a woman? Like, are you in competition with her because you worried about the male ego, or is it more when guys get together that you get more competitive?
Us lot that just gets competitive.
Yeah, guys.
I think that's
Interesting.
just we're close. Well, we know each other and known each other for so long. But no, because I've learned some strange things from people that I just wouldn't have expected. Both male and female, both out hunting. What?
But like, I guess like you put yourself in a hunting situation where you don't know the person or you know them very little. You sort of have that sort of little bit of anxiety to perform well. So in a way, I feel like it's the same as competing, because you sort of there's an ego behind that to how you should be performing.
Mm.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I do. I don't know. Typically, if we would go out with like hunting with a female, we'd know if they've been out hunting before or sort of where their level is at.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones typically taking them out. So it's a hard question to answer.
And you don't want to go out and then butcher their animal.
Do you guys take it in turns? Like, do you because Caleb and I both have to do like, was it your first shot last time or was it my first shot? Like, we both have to remember, like, we take it in turns at first shot, So, because we're generally side by side, or we're in contact, like as we're scouting and hunting. So, I mean, he's probably told you he wants to do the deer stand in the tree. Did he talk about that? Yeah. So I always joke that I'm going to be running around scaring all the deer off for me before he gets to his stand. but I mean, we try and take it in turns on who's going to get the first shot. But then if you're in the position for a better shot, then you naturally just let the other person take the shot. So I don't know. Do you have that, or do you like sounds like you're normally taking someone hunting, so you probably let them have the first shot or something?
Yeah, with us, we try to have a bit of a plan of who's going to shoot what. But we just went out actually in early this month, and the theory behind that was whoever spots the deer can have the shot at the deer instead of being like, all right, it's your turn or whatever.
Yeah,
just
that's a good idea.
Yeah, to keep it like each other on their toes a bit more, I guess. Like yeah.
Oh. Yeah, and reward your spotting skills.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a competition in itself.
Worst hunters, because we'll all be sitting there. One of us will spot a deer and just be like, deer! Just big sudden movements in a loud voice. You're like, we'll do it, though. We're like, oh, well.
Yeah. That's an interesting question.
I'm used to hunting by myself, so I hunted with Jack Spinks. Have you heard of Jack?
Yeah.
He's an awesome bow hunter. Yeah, so when I decided I wanted to hunt, on my way to do the solo thing by myself for 3 weeks, I thought, well, geez, I should really go and see someone who's hunted a goat. So my first goat was with Jack, and then 2 days later I was by myself, in the wilds and trying to be like, wow, I mean, how does this hide thing come off, so I've hunted with him, and he's always amazing. He's fantastic and so humble and just really excited and passionate about people hunting with him, like nothing makes him happier than sharing someone else's hunt. He's really good with that. And then I was by myself for a long time just hunting, and then Caleb's come along, and then we've had to be like, hang on, and you scared that one. No, it was the twig that you stepped on.
That's good dinner conversation.
When there's someone with you, there's always that person to blame.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was never me.
How'd you go on your first, the first 3 week hunt? You managed to get a goat?
Yeah, and I can eat a goat in 3 days. So I was pretty impressed with that. The whole goat, 3 days. So there was an abundance of goats, and I just staked out a watering hole. And I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty sure your audience is probably just hunters, so they'll probably understand, but I will I can't ever really explain the feeling of how right it felt to bow hunt my first goat by myself. You know, like I picked, like, I know how to shoot a gun, you know, like I was brought up in the country. And it's the first time Caleb and I went out hunting, because he's really good with guns. He's like, do you want me to put a melon up here for target practice? And I'm like, nah, I'm okay. Boom, headshot. It was just like, okay, no, we're good without the melon practice. So like, I know guns, you know, but as soon as I picked up a bow, like I can't even do compounds. Like it's got too many bits to it. But much like the swords and the weapons that I used on set, like the bow just feels so right in my hand. And I had to practice for like a year before I got confident enough to think like, right, I can hit an animal. But still, I hadn't really killed an animal before, you know, like I step over ants. Like I'm like the keeping spiders out of the house with my hands, you know, like I don't kill. I just don't kill. And so, and I'd been vegetarian for 20 years. So then I was like, right, well, there's this animal. And I just like, it all came down to the water, and I just stood up and shot and got like the double lung. The thing reared up, made a horrendous noise, as goats can do, and just fell over. And I was just like, it felt so freaking right. I'm like, this is what we need to be doing. Like, this is how we need to get our food. Like, this is real, and this is life, and this is, I don't know, like I've never felt more in my body and in the right place. And then like it was bloody heavy. Like, it was a big black thing, and I dragged it away from the water hole so all the rest of the goats could keep drinking. And then it was so hot, and I had to like skin it, and I wanted to keep the skin. Like I made leather out of the skin, and I wanted to keep the skull, and, you know, so I boiled that down. But I was also just staying in this stone cottage with no running water or anything like that, and then cut up this goat and just ate it for the next 3 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I was like, oh, okay, one goat in 3 days. And then I just went out every 3 days and got another goat, and learned it that way.
Whole goat in 3 days.
I feel like that's quick.
Yeah. That's more than 800 calories.
I was very hungry.
I know.
They weren't very big goats.
Here's a question for you. Have you done much hunting in the States?
Yes. I've hunted alligator and pig, and I don't think I hunted deer in the States. So just alligator and pig, and then just on the shows, you know, like with primitive weapons and stuff, but not an organized hunt.
Yeah. Is that on the cards for you to do?
I mean, I've just got tons of friends over there still, because I lived there for ages, and they're all in that hunting community. Like a lot of them are like friends of Joe Rogan, you know, like the Cameron Haynes, it's the Sorinex sort of group. Like all of that group is my mates over there. So like I could do one easily enough. I just sort of haven't got around to it. been poverty.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, that is fair.
Is there a dream hunt and location sort of that you want to do?
I mean, I'd love Africa. Just, you know, any old buck. I wouldn't want anything special or precious, but like I almost did another Naked and Afraid in Africa last year in July. But the girl I was going to go out with, her dad was dying, so she didn't go out. But I would have loved to have gone. They would have let me take my bow, and, you know, they just to be living like that, living off the land, and having that real primal connection to the hunts. It would have been amazing. So, you know, that, but I mean, every hunt's pretty spectacular. Even, you know, like any of the big red or roosters around here. I mean, I've been out on a lot of deer hunts, and I've got pretty close, but I haven't had a lot of opportunities sort of to to get an arrow in anything there. But yeah, so anything really. Anytime you put meat in your fridge for yourself, I think spectacular.
Yeah.
100%.
And trying it with a trad bow is next level too.
I know. I've been increasing my poundage so I can go for some of those bigger ones. Because I mean, I personally, Fred Bear shot an elephant with a 35-pound bow. You know, like if you put arrow in the right place, it doesn't really matter what the poundage is. But unfortunately, the people who don't know anything make the laws, and so you know, these little arms, they're like putting up to like 50 pounds, but slowly. So I can have some of the
He's
bigger
good.
deer. Oh, I'm not there yet.
Oh dear. Oh, very good, very good.
Nice. All right, Ky, the next one. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, so many bits of advice. I mean, it would probably be, gosh, I don't think I read that question. Otherwise, I would have thought a bit about that one. I mean, I think it would be to say yes more than no. You know, like quite often in the world, you know, we're very quick to be like, no, I can't do that. I'm like, well, you just haven't done it yet, you know, like what if you could, you know, and give it a go. That's probably the best bit of advice I've been given. You know, quite often we get worried that we're going to look silly or embarrass ourselves or, you know, it's not going to turn out right. But it's like, who cares? Like, what if it doesn't? What if you're not good at it? What if, you know? So I think most of my great adventures have started with me saying yes instead of no when I felt like I wanted to say no. I mean, that's not to say that when someone hands you a bubbly fizzy drink and wants to take you down a dark alley, you're like, yes, but
Yeah, let's work it out.
yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And I mean, amongst the three of us, Josh is typically the one who's always, yes, let's do it. He's the hype guy. He's like, yep, do it. Let's go. I'm probably the most reserved of the three of us, the sort of, let's weigh up the pros and cons of this before we go there.
And it depends on my mood.
But
I can go either way.
Yeah.
You got to have that person. You just have to have that person in your group of friends that's, yes, because they just keep pushing the boundaries of things and you find
of everything.
It's good because it keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, extend yourself as a person. So it is good. So
I do like
I
that.
mean, and quite often, like, someone will come to me and go like, oh, I've always wanted to do this. And I'm like, well, let's do it next week. And they're like, what? I'm like, we've always wanted to do it. What are you doing next week? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, great. Well, this is what we're doing next week. Let's do it. You know, and I've been on quite a few adventures where people have just, like, I've just crossed something massive off someone's list because I'm like, well, I'm not busy. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. What do you need? Let's do it.
That definitely shows in your career and your life, I reckon. Just doing it. You've done a lot. Jesus.
I know. And I'm just getting started.
That's it. Well, we have to say thank you for saying yes to this podcast.
You know, that's it. If I can say yes, I will.
Awesome. Love it.
Sweet.
Hey, Ky, what's your most treasured possession?
Ooh, my bow and my motorbike for sure.
What bike?
I've got a Yamaha Bolt. It's like a 944cc cruiser. So it looks like the Harley Iron, that sort of look. But I rode the Iron and I was like, oh God, this couldn't go for miles on this, you know. And then I rode the Yamaha version. I'm like, this is my bike. It's just like sleek and smooth. So I had a lot, like I lived on my bike for about a year around Australia, a year and a half. And I hunted doing it. So I had like my bow under one leg, like it's not a takedown bow, it's a super grizzly. So I had that under one leg and I had like arrows across the back and I had a little bunny rabbit target that I would like use to practice with and all my camping kit and everything. And then like I went collecting deer antlers, so eventually I had these rooster antler on the back of my bike too. It would have looked like an absolute sight. Like if it fell over, there was no way in hell I was picking that thing up. Like it was so heavy. But And it was funny because I was in one of those fires in Rockhampton like 4 or 5 years ago when the whole of Rocky went up. And I'm a survivalist. Never go back into a fire. Nothing is worth your life. But I went back into the fire for my motorbike and my bow. I was just like, screw that. These are my prized possessions. Worth dying for.
There's that. Just say yes. Yes, I'll
She asked herself. Would you do that again?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot in my life, but I've spent everyone tries to get me to switch bows, like try the Black Widow, try this one, try that one. I'm like, this is my bear, Super Grizzly. I will have it until it breaks. I love it. I just need one thing, and I'm the same with my bike. I had my bike over in the States with me, and I spent a fortune to ship it back here. I could have bought a used Bolt for the same price, but it's like, no, this is the one I've had since it was brand new, and this is my bow, and yeah, they're probably my 2 prized possessions.
Yeah, it's good when you just have like a couple things and you cherish them and look after
And
them.
you know them inside and out kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, especially a bow. Like I imagine that you get personal with it, sort of similar with a rifle. You just
not your personal, Josh.
My rifle sort of has little kinks.
What?
Well, it does. It's just like the trigger pressure and things like it's just got like little kinks in it.
Idiosyncrasies.
Mm-hmm.
I've got confused because you're getting personal with the bow and kinks.
A treasured possession, you fucking sexual deviant. Jesus.
Anyway.
Yeah, and the thing with bows is like I don't know if you guys know much about bows, but the length of your arrow and the weight of the tip and the way the type of feathers that you now you've gone.
But you're right.
I mean,
personal preference.
I just don't understand how people just switch them out willy-nilly, because I think that you spend so much time tuning certain weapons to certain ammunition, and then suddenly like you're with something else that just takes a while to get back into the swing of that. So yeah, that's why I don't switch out my bow very often.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does.
I was so annoyed on the last Frozen because on the last Naked and Afraid I did, they gave me a bow, and I think I didn't have my bow with me when I went over there, and they just gave me this random store-bought bow, and it was £50. Like my bow is 35, and I'm like, there's a rabbit there, and I had 3 shots at a rabbit with these arrows that were just bought off the floor with, I don't know. I mean, I'm just so fussy with that stuff, and I couldn't even draw the bow back to full draw or anything like that. It was so tight, and I was just like, and I missed the rabbit by like an inch each time, and I was like, yes, like I can't believe I got that close. But of course, when they replay it back, it looks like I'm just a shit hunter. And I spent so much time online going, it wasn't my bow. It was. But if you don't understand those things, you just looks like I'm a shit hunter.
Bow. Yeah. Same as that thing, gun's a gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
Very good. Well, hey, Ky, we've never asked this question of someone who's worked in the industry, but what is your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite movie. I mean, I love the Indiana Joneses, to be honest. Like, the first one's probably my favorite, but you know what I mean? That was when people sort of say, if you could have someone at a dinner party, I'm always like Indiana Jones and MacGyver, like those two. But like the old MacGyver, not the new one. But I mean, I just love the idea of exploring uncharted territories. You know, I mean, we don't really get to do that very often. Like, I don't know if you heard of Elon Musk, like people who were going to get sent to Mars. And I was just like, sign me up. And there was all these people, and they're like, but it's a one-way trip. And I'm like, you you know, like, but nobody's ever done it before, you know, like so I did the first season of Naked and Afraid because no one had done it before. I did the first Naked and Afraid of Sharks because no one had done it before. I did the first season of Naked and Afraid Alone because no one had done it before. And I did the first one of the Frozen ones. Like, people say, why don't you do the 40-day one? I'm like, because everyone else has done it now. You know, like, I like the idea of doing things, and I'm sure it was from watching like Indiana Jones, you know, and wishing that was actually a real career and I could do it.
Yeah. So you wouldn't, or have you thought about trying out for the SBS Alone?
They won't do the crossover. They won't do a Naked and Afraid, or like if you've been on Naked and Afraid, they don't take you on Alone.
Oh, really?
No. So, and vice versa.
Okay.
I don't know, like it's different networks, but I think it started off as a thing and now it's become a big thing and it just doesn't happen, you know, like I was trying out for the Alone that got shot in Australia and they were desperate for women that knew what they were doing. And as soon as they found out I'd done Naked and Afraid, it was not a thing.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
I'd love to do it. I mean, I think it would be a camping trip. You've got like 10 items and clothing. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'll see you next year.
Vancouver Island still looks pretty hellish, actually. I'll have to admit, like just the constant rain and the high tide, like the real high and low tides consistently. I'd just like that. That would be difficult. That would be.
I love Vancouver Island. Like I worked over there a lot, and it was beautiful. Like there's so much to eat. You know, like all of those tides, you get such an incredible range of like mollusks and everything up through those high and low tides. You'd be set for. You could just survive forever.
It's probably why they're like, season,
different priorities.
I've always wanted to know, actually, if there's any like animals that you're not allowed to shoot on these shows. Like, do they have like a no-go list?
Yeah. So I mean, especially if you're in America, like when we were in Montana, we weren't allowed to shoot any of the buck. You know, it wasn't deer shooting season. They didn't get tags. They forgot to get tags for things like beaver, and so there were like a couple of beavers swimming around, and we weren't allowed to get them. And yeah, I mean, the Amazon. What's that?
What if it's somehow drowned?
Yeah. When the cameras were turned off, it was another story. But then, like the Amazon, they're just like, you can kill anything you want, you know, as long as you just pay us some money for it afterwards. And you know, so it really. They try and have tags for things, you know, like in the swamp, they had some alligator tags if we could get them. And, yeah, so it's, but definitely we're not allowed to just kill anything unless the cameras aren't there.
Bear, is there bear in Montana? There isn't there. You're allowed black bear?
I mean, we really don't have the weapons for it.
Yeah.
So while I was in Montana, it was snowing, like it was cold, but the bears were starting to emerge. And on about night 7 or 8, there were just helicopters going overhead the whole time. And I was just like, oh shit, like, because there was 3 other camps of Naked and Afraid people out there. And I'm like, one of them's in trouble, right? And these helicopters went over for like a day and 2 nights. And I was just like, what is going on? And then the producers come up to us on like day 9 or 10. And they're like, so a man got eaten by a grizzly 4 miles from here, and they haven't caught the bear. So we're like, oh, okay, all right, just 4 miles, huh? Yeah, those grizzlies. So I mean, I would have put up a good fight. Maybe I would have killed it. If I did, I'd be wearing its like head and hide. I can tell you that for nothing.
Yes, 100%. That'd be on the floor in the lounge room.
Yeah.
Or I'd be on its floor in its lounge room. One or the other.
So I haven't watched a whole lot of Naked and Afraid, but that's I'm guessing by the sounds of it, it's set over a certain time period, like 21 days
So initially it was 21 days. That's how long you're meant to be able to survive without food. So even if you're like totally shit at hunting or gathering, you should be able to survive 21 days. It's only an average, some people can survive longer, some people less, but that's why they made it 21 days. And then they brought out a concept where they get like 12 people out there and they do 40 days because, with more people, you can get more resources and sort of last longer. And then they pushed it out to doing a 60-day one. But like people's hair start to fall out and their teeth start to fall out. And it's like, just any longer than that, it just gets a bit messy. And they do have to sort of give them vitamin tablets on those 60-day ones just to try and not have a massive amount of side effects. And then they do specials, like we did a Shark Week special that was just 2 weeks, but there was no food on the island. They gave us spear guns and it was in an area that's called Shark Alley in the Bahamas, so they would bring in all the sharks and then we'd have to get in the water with them. But I quite like sharks, so I wasn't really bothered. They're not too bad.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
You're on your own there.
Yeah.
they were only like nurses and black tip reef sharks. They were like, there was one hammerhead one day, but no, like there's no cases of a hammerhead ever killing a human being. Like
because they're not alive about it.
Yeah. Not that we know of.
Yeah. Was something about
the best killer of man. They do it really quietly.
Was the series alone, was that something that sort of drew you in because it was a bit of an unlimited sort of until you fail?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I like about the idea of that.
Yeah.
So my Naked and Afraid alone was still only 21 days. So there is something psychological about that when you know it's going to end. Like, I'm probably the worst reality TV show person ever because I just don't buy into it. Like I know that I have a radio just there that at any time I can be like, I give up, and like within 20 minutes, like if I've been bit by a snake, they can have a helicopter in, with a fairly reasonable time. And, I was on movie sets forever. So I kind of just get in the idea that it's a set, it's another set, it's a long stunt that I'm doing. So I don't buy into the psychology of it so much. Like I'm useless. Like they have on the Louisiana one, they try to make it look like I'm crying because they're killing an animal. But this animal was making these horrendous noises as we were trying to kill it. And we couldn't kill it for about 10 minutes, couldn't get another spear into it. So I'm in tears because I'm starving. It's like day 18 and this thing's like, and I'm like, just kill it. And then they're just like, yeah, no, let's just make it look like she's crying because the animal's being killed. But like I don't, like even on my alone, it wasn't until the very end that I sort of broke down. Like I just know that it's 21 days and you can do anything for 21 days. So that's why I would like to do the alone, because I think the added thing of not knowing when it will end and knowing there's other people out there that may just be better than you, and they might just be doing one more day, like some of those women, or I don't know if it was women, but some of the competitors that I felt like it was a woman who got tapped and then the winner tapped out like a day later. And if she'd stayed just one more day, she would have won, like, so that the psychological aspect of warring against like the boredom of being out there, because it does get boring, you are rinse and repeat. You're like food, fire, water, shelter, food, fire, water, shelter. Like, and that would be amazing to try at least. Like, I really would like to try that.
We've spoken about this girl before, but on one of the lanes, she was an absolute freak at it. She ended up like building her own house, and it had sort of like a rock plinth and into a wall and this bed and everything. And she got that bored that she made herself a what are they called? Sauna. To have a bath.
Really?
Yeah. She made a sauna. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Like, absolutely incredible. And she tapped out like 3 days later for no reason. Or it seemed like no reason on the show. And I was baffled watching. I'm like, why are you going?
I think she said that she sort of ran out of things to do. And it was just going to be the same thing. So she's like, I'm out.
But she was killing it. Like, absolutely crushing it. I'm like, oh, what? This just ruined the show for me.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, you've got to just keep doing. Like in survival scenarios, like, it's the lack of hope or lack of being positive that ends up in killing people. Like, I mean, I researched the psychology of survival a lot for for the book Survive. And they say, like, you can be in a life raft full of food and full of water, but people will lose hope and they'll just die. And they'll watch the light go out of their eyes and they'll die in minutes just by losing hope, you know. And so one of the ways that I encourage people not to lose hope is by keeping busy. But I guess once you made a sauna and a house and a bed, you're just like, I'm done.
Then you find a volleyball that's washed up on shore and paint a face
right.
on it. Like a friend.
Find a Wilson.
That's Well, Ky, who do you think we should have as a guest on this podcast?
Recommend. Yeah.
I mean, you've had 5 seasons though, haven't you?
We have.
Yes.
You must have had a lot of guests.
Yeah, it's been a
few, yeah.
We do mix it up. So we have sort of half and half, just us talking crap. And then we have guests as well. So
I mean, have you spoken to have you had Jack on?
No.
Jack Spinks?
No.
You should speak to Jack Spinks. And have you heard of Nocturnal Archer, Andy?
No,
I don't think I've heard of.
He's a blind dude that shoots and hunts, but with bows.
That's cool.
What was his name, sorry?
Nocturnal Archer is his Instagram handle, and his name's Andy.
Andy.
And he
how that works. Yeah, wow. Hunting with a bow blind.
Yeah.
Right. So he has a disorder that his eyes stay open, so he gets too much light in. But yeah, so he's an amazing guy. Like, he's just an incredible archer. And he's just brilliant. So he's just interesting to talk to about his journey with it, I think.
Yeah. Good one. Let's hit him up.
Yeah. That sounds absolutely interesting, to be honest.
Sweet. Well, we won't probe any further there because that's some good recommendations.
I haven't seen much from Jack on socials lately. Did he go off for a while?
He had a baby.
Okay, right. That makes me be why.
Yeah, so he's got a little baby. Jeez, just a baby. He's got a baby.
Human baby.
it's a human. I can't remember. I felt sure it was a boy, but then I wondered if it was a girl. So it's a baby. Yeah, I think it's about 6 months now. So he's getting back on. Like, I've seen more. I see more of his posts about hunting foxes and goats lately. I think he's getting out a bit more now. But you know, he's also really expanding his business with with his string making and all that sort of stuff too. But he's just so passionate about hunting and about introducing new people to hunting and stuff. So I just like his enthusiasm with it all.
Yeah.
And how he's helped a lot of people I know. Like, he actually took Andy, the blind archer, on his first goat hunt and got him a goat, you know. So I think it's incredible.
Nice.
Sorry, I'm still not getting used to that. He got the black nudge.
Yeah.
You shot the neighbour's cat, mate. What are you doing?
That would be fine too.
Dear.
I think we need a deep dive into the logistics of doing that. So
Yeah, I think so. That gives hope if you ever lose your eyesight, though. Just become the blind shooter.
yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
we can be better. You can be my guide.
Yeah, just a little to the left.
I'll just get you with a spoon there, hitting some steel when he's shooting. Yeah, get it, bud. You got it.
Yeah.
Well, talking of rifles and firearms, Ky, what was the first rifle you ever used or owned? I'm assuming back in your sort of growing up in the country days.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I'm not like a real technical one on the guns. I'm like, it was a rifle and I pointed it at a fox and shot it. But yeah, like Caleb's sort of the gun person. And I mean, and it's sad because I've shot some magnificent guns on set, and I've been trained by like one guy that trained me, like had Obama on speed dial when it was like, when Obama was the president, like I've been trained by some of the top, and for blind spot, we had an FBI, an FBI consultant there, and we went to the army base at, I think it was in New Jersey, and we got to shoot all these just really cool rifles and things. But me, I'm just like, oh, it's just a gun, and like it's a bigger gun, and it's an even bigger one, and I mean, cool story. I don't know if I should tell you guys, but I'm sure it's okay. We were doing training for blind spot, and with this guy, and we couldn't find a place that was okay to train, so we were just doing it in his hotel room. And so we were like learning how to do things like reload a shotgun like with one hand, so you could be doing something like and do all that really cool shit, and like clear rooms, and how to like pretend to fire and then like drop the magazine out and reload really smoothly and all that sort of stuff. Like she had to look like she was a Navy SEAL, so had to look like she knows what she's doing. So we did all this firearm training, and then we were going to do some swimming training because Jamie had lied about knowing how to swim. So she got got a job as a Navy SEAL, and we had to go into swim training for her. So we went into the bathroom in the hotel room to get changed, and I hear this bang, 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 bang on the bathroom door. And I open the door. I'm like, this policewoman barges in the door, and she's like, "What agency are you with?" And all I could think of was like my talent agency, right? And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "What agency is that?" And she's like yelling in my face, and I'm like, "Los Angeles Talent Agency?" Like, I don't know. And then her superior comes in and goes, "It's okay, situation's under control." And she left, and we went out into the room. And the guy that had been running our training just showed the guy officer in command some ID, and the officer was like, "Oh, sorry, sir. Okay, sir. No, okay, sir. Never mind, sir." And like was backing out of the room, and he's like, next time, just let us know, sir." And he walks out of the room, and we found out that a window cleaner had seen us using the guns. They had shut down. This is in New York City. They had shut down like 4 square blocks of New York City, closed down, and like the hotel had been evacuated, and they'd swarmed up into this room to come and like stop these terrorists. And still the guy got an apology from the officer. And I'm like, he offered me his phone number, and he's like, "If you're ever in any trouble," and I'm like, I'll keep that one in my phone.
Bloody hell. I got a question actually about blind spot. How long did it take to get all that tattoo done?
So for most takes, we would just get the neck and the sleeves done. So that'd be most days, you notice she's just wearing a t-shirt. And that was an hour and a half just to get arms and neck done. And then there was like a fight sequence in underwear, and I had to get the full body tats, and that was 7 hours. So I had to do that. Yeah, had to do that the day before, and then shoot the underwear fight sequence, and then like it took about 2 hours to get it off again. So yeah, an hour and a half extra in makeup, and then an hour to scrub them off at the end of the day.
You'd have gotten sick of that pretty quick.
Oh, and our skin was like so raw too from all the chemicals, and and they seemed like they would stay on, but if I'm doing a fight sequence where someone's grabbing my arm and twisting and I'm sweating, like then the tattoos would start to come off, and it was such a process. I think they ended up getting a suit for the last sort of couple of seasons on that I wasn't working on, but yeah, it was like they would quite often joke about the script writers and how they come up with the concept and then just being like, never again are we doing a tattoo show. It was crazy.
Oh God.
Oh, yeah, I can't imagine that. You
Seven
get to know the makeup artist pretty well, I imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, you do. Yeah.
Is it just one makeup artist?
Surely it's
No,
not.
well, when we just do the arms and neck, it was just one person, and then when it was the full body, I had 3 people working on me, just standing there in my underwear like this, with like people getting. And my body proportions are a little different to Jamie's, and the tattoos had been made for her body, so they're sort of like trying to just like stick it on and get it done.
Bloody hell. Kudos to you. I couldn't sit that long in a chair.
No.
And then we had to do hair and makeup on top of that as well. So it was usually like if we had a 5 a.m. call time, we'd have to be in at 2 a.m. Like it was crazy.
Was it a bit nerve-wracking, like sleeping that night with it all on, going, don't fuck it up?
Yeah, it was. I put like a full body stocking on and then tried not to move. But the funny thing was, it was like a really hot day in New York. So after I had the full body thing done, I was going out to dinner, and the way people look at you when you've got a full body of tattoos, they're just like, that poor girl, what has she done with her life? It's just like, it's not mine. They rub off. It's okay.
That would have been entertaining.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, dear. So, Ky, what projects are you coming up? Any TV shows coming up? Any stunt work? Have you left that now? What's coming up for you?
Well, I mean, I wish I could tell you, but I can't. So I have some really cool projects that are sort of on the boil at the moment. I've been asked to write. So when Survive came out, they brought out When the Grid Fails and Fire. So I had 3 books come out last year. They've got another one coming out this year, which I'm just sort of finishing off now. And then another one next year, which I have to write. So I like to just sit down and smash them out. So my next 6 weeks is probably just in front of the computer. And then I have a couple of projects that are sort of in the works in the US, if any of those come off, but too early to talk about. And then just, bits and pieces here and there. Nothing concrete, but it always happens. Like, what are you doing next week? And then I'm like, right, I'm done. So
Sounds like a little big loss.
Oh, that's cool. Well, if you're just saying yes and off you go, then I suppose it's pretty spontaneous.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty excited because somebody asked for a copy of my book to give to their friend Randy Couture. And so I'm pretty excited at the moment that Randy Couture might have a signed copy of my book in the next couple of weeks. But then Randy has had a look at the book and he asked for a copy for his friend Joe Rogan. So I'm like, that's the most exciting thing in my life at the moment.
Bloody hell.
That's pretty cool.
Narrowing the degrees of separation. I like that.
Yeah. So I mean, even if he doesn't look at it, knowing that my book might be somewhere given by Randy Couture to Joe Rogan, I think that's I could die happy tomorrow. That's cool.
All right, here's a question. Who's the biggest star you fanboyed out to?
Fangirl down,
Yeah,
maybe.
fanboyed.
You know, it's embarrassingly, it was probably Kevin Sorbo, but I did meet way bigger stars than that later on. I think I got used to it. I mean, I did a show with Adam West, who was Batman, and I had a bit of a like moment when I saw him on set, but it was a really bad, like low budget movie, so I'm not really like worth writing home about. But you know, like the people that I loved the most weren't people that I fanboyed out about. It was people that I just connected with. So you know, like Hugh Jackman was just amazing. I worked with him for 3 months on X-Men 3, and I got to do a massive fight sequence with him that never made it to the show, unfortunately. But and I spent a lot of time just helping him out with safety because I was the only Australian on set. So you know, we would just chat a lot, and he was just such a good bloke. And you know, I mean, I had a moment on Thor where for some reason they didn't bring Jamie out for this walking sequence when they walk up to the frost giants in the beginning. So I'm just walking on set, and then they start the fight sequence, right? And I'm just there with like Chris Hemsworth and Ray Stevens, and you know, like I'm just like trying not to go like this as I'm walking like a warrior, you know, like all dressed in these amazing costumes. And it was, I mean, so I've had incredibly cool moments. Like the first moment I spent with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'd flown in that evening, and the stunt sequence was like 1 a.m, and I hadn't met him, but he slides the car in as bullets are being shot at the car, and I just crouch up against the door, and he opens the door and he's like, "Get in, I'll cover you." And I'm like in that Arnold Schwarzenegger voice, right? And I'm like so tired, and I'm like, "Is this really happening?" You know, like, what is going on here? So I mean, there was just moments within things, but apart from Kevin Sorbo, I think I kept it together, to be honest.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Well done. Well, I've got as Josh would say, burning question, quite literally, pardon the pun, but who can light a fire from scratch quicker, you or Caleb?
Oh, we're pretty equal.
Don't be modest.
I'll tell you what, when you're down in South Australia, we'll take you out for a deer hunt and we'll put this to the test.
All right, it's a deal. So I'll give him, like, he can do the hand drill, right?
Oh,
so he wins that one. I do the bow drill probably the same as him. So we're both similar on the bow drill, but he's definitely got the hand drill down. So I'll give him that. But we'll definitely have a race with the bow drill. For a deer hunt, I mean, of course. Or we could teach you guys how to do it, and you can race doing it.
I'm keen for that as well.
Yeah, I'm keen to use my big glider.
I bet we could get one faster.
Done. I'll take them odds. Yeah, it's something that we'd all like to learn a bit more. Actually,
Should actually just try more as well.
Yeah,
just
we should try more.
You know, and it's so funny to me because like survival's not a big thing in Australia. Like we do 4-wheel driving, and we should know survival, but we don't even really like. Naked and Afraid's not big. Alone is sort of, but we don't watch survival shows as much as Americans, and it is just incredible to me because the space we enter into every time we step out of our cities, and like my book is in Adelaide Archery, but I mean I haven't really done a push around the hunting stores or anything, but it's like the amount of hunters I speak to, I'm like, "Do you have a first aid kit?" And they're like, "No." Right? Right. You know, and it's like we are the ones that if anyone's going to get a blunt force trauma like accident, it's bloody going to be someone like not putting their rifle on carefully enough through the fence, you know, like, or a wild pig coming and gouging and getting our femoral artery. You know, like we are putting ourselves into these constantly dangerous situations. And I had a really funny one. I think I was hunting with Jack, and he said, "Oh, I've been talking to Nick, who makes like some arrowheads or something. Like he's a big hunter, and they just they got some gut bug. They're on a hunting thing, and they got a gut bug, and they've had to go out." And I said, "Did they drink the water?" And he's like, "No, they wouldn't have." And then he called me up. He's like, "Yeah, they drank the water. They said it was fine because it was clear and running." I'm like, "It's the fucking water." You know,
wait a second. I've got to clarify this now because
this is a perfect topic.
I don't purify water when we're out in Vic High country, and we're obviously high, so you know, fairly high up in elevation. It's running water and it's clear. Would you say that it's at least 85% safe to drink, if not more?
You know what? You got a better chance than not, but what you don't know is what's upstream from you. So, like,
nothing ran through.
Like, you could have a elk shitting upstream, you know, like, I don't know. I just saw like a really horrific video of some parasite coming out of a deer's bum, and it was like into the running water stream. And I'm like, oh God, you know, like, so basically 90% of the world's groundwater is polluted. So you have a 1 in 10 chance of the water you're drinking being safe, but you have a 9 in 10 chance of it not. So, you know,
it tasted nice.
You take those odds, yeah.
it tastes odd. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so if you found a spring coming out the side of a mountain or something, you'd be all right?
You know, again, better odds than not, but springs come from caverns, come from things that fall down into caverns. You know, like, look, if I was dying, I didn't have anything else, I'd take the chance. If I have something else, I'll purify water every single time, just because I don't want to ruin my hunting trip, you know, like, that's the basic thing for me. I mean, no, we're not in a survival scenario, so if you get, like, if you start puking and pooping, you can walk out, but I just think, like, well, why ruin your hunting trip?
That's what, you know, I was thinking when Josh was like, "Oh, we can drink that." I'm like, "Nah, man, that was day 2 of the
It would have ruined our hunting trip as well.
It was fine. Nothing happened. It was absolutely
1 in
fine.
10 chance of it being okay. You're just gonna roll them dice, buddy.
Oh dear.
No, I'm glad that come up.
Your argument
It was perfectly fine.
I might get a steri pin, but across the line,
I got a pen, a bit bigger
pen. Sorry, but across the line at a first aid kit.
Just until you need one, and then you'll bring it every time.
yeah, pretty much.
What would be your process to make water safe for you to drink that you usually go to?
If I'm prepared, you know, like, I'll take some kind of filter system. You know, it's easy enough these days. You could just pour the water in. It takes minutes and it's filtered, you know, and you get 99.999% of everything out. And that would be, you know, I always carry a filter. If I'm going into survival scenarios, boiling's really the only way that you can ensure that you can get it all out. And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're in a survival situation, you know, like, you're going to die, you've got a puddle of water in front of you, it's muddy and there's kangaroo poop in it, like, but you're going to die, drink the bloody puddle water, you know, but know that if you're, you know that you could die in 2 hours rather than 6 if you drink it, you know. I mean, at the end of the day, the results of bad water are more dehydration, so you're going to die faster if that's the case.
Yep.
But risk versus reward. You just wait your first parasite and you'll be like, "Oh, I should have boiled the water."
The whole thing it was unnecessary. Like, we had so much water with us.
Well, I filled up my water from that creek.
Really?
Like a day later. Oh no, the next day, the day before we left. That might have been the same. No, it was the day before we left.
So why you went quiet for like the rest of the
Only Nalgene bottle. I was just like, yeah, this is fine. Tasted fine. We fine.
Yeah.
All right.
As long as you didn't share it with us, I'm happy.
No.
It sounds like you played the odds and won, so it's a good result.
It is. I like to gamble.
I didn't know you were gambling though. That's the thing.
In my mind, it was safe, so it was fine. So, yeah.
You've probably got an iron stomach. I mean, when I traveled in the Amazon, the tribes I'm traveling with were drinking, like they'll just put their cup in this water. It was just dirty water, and they just drink it, like their stomach. They've got iron stomachs. They're brought up on that water. I got like a drop of it in my water bottle once, and I was sick for days, So it's like maybe you got an iron gut, maybe it'll work for you.
I feel like years and years of drinking
it's immunity
South
to that
Australian
sort of thing,
water.
Curry water.
Water, you'd be fine anywhere in the world.
Don't drink it at the moment. It's pretty much septic.
Yeah. Well, we are drinking it at the moment, so.
Well.
Anyway, I think we've kept Ky for long enough. She's been very generous with her time, and we have to say a big thank you.
Yeah.
So, Ky, how can people get a hold of you and find out what you're up to, and also where can they get your books?
So I'm on socials as Ky Furneaux, so KY, and then the last name's FURNEAUX. So it's a little bit tricky. Easy first name, a lot harder last name. So that's on all like Insta, Facebook, and that. And then I have a website which is just kyfurneaux.com. I have a shop there that you can buy autographed copies of my books if you want. But other than that, you can just pick them up online through most sort of online bookstores at this stage. I think Patagonia is looking at stocking them sort of sometime soon, and you'll be able to get them from outdoor stores. But my publishers are sort of just switching agencies in Australia, so it might take a bit of time. Best to order them online.
Fair enough.
Easy.
Sounds like a plan. Well, everyone get out there and check them out because I'm sure they're a good read. I haven't personally read them, so
The rut's coming up, so there'll be a bit of downtime during the day to read a book, actually. So,
get that updated
Well,
essay to survive.
650 pages. So even though I should be recommending it, just use it as a resource book. Don't worry about reading it from cover to cover.
650.
150.
Okay. Good.
You've never read a 650 page book.
That's his brain just
a bit like a bit of a Game of Thrones.
Just a 16-part series. Or?
Yeah. Look, I had a lot to say.
Very good. Well, Ky, it's been awesome getting to know you and hearing your story and learning a bit from you as well. So,
and once again, if you and Caleb are down in South Australia, we're happy to take you out for a hunt.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. We'll definitely get down there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Easy.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there.
All right.
Hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks to Ky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Catch you next week.
Catch you guys.
Gotcha.